I just quit my job as a night guard. I hope that this will stop whatever's happening, but I doubt it. Either way, I've decided to type down and tell you about why I chose to leave my job and why I'm typing this terrified out of my mind. I'm hoping that showing this to someone will help me figure out how to stop it. It all started a few weeks ago. I had been working for roughly a year. The work of a night guard is usually a lonely one, at least it was for me. I was paid to patrol empty offices in the middle of the night, take calls, and stop neighbors who partied too loud, and generally make sure that the petty crime was kept to a minimum. I enjoyed my job, as it let me stroll around at night, occasionally listening to a podcast or two, having a whole place for myself. But all good things must end, right? About a month ago, my employers took a contract from a retailer that sells clothing. I won't name any names, but yes, it's one of the bigger ones. I live in a rather large city in Sweden and had the privilege to be one assigned to this particular job. The retailer needed someone to guard their new storage facility, since there had apparently been a break-in almost as soon as they moved in, and they felt the need for some sort of security. What was odd was that the new facility was in one of the old asylums near the city. I know what you're thinking. Of course it had to be a spooky asylum, probably filled to the brim with old electroshock therapy machines and ravaging lunatics, but no, this time it's far less severe, actually. It was a privately owned asylum, which had passed down in the family from parent to child. The latest owner was found guilty of sexually abusing the patients. There was a huge scandal and boom. Abandoned asylum. No murder, no crazy lunatic, just an evil man who is now in prison. It had been around since the start of the 20th century, so it did have its share of history, though. I'll spare you the details about how I got there, what equipment I brought, what my schedule looked like. I will, however, try to describe to you what the place looked like. There were 3 buildings. They all had gray walls with a large roundabout outside the first building. There was a nice garden, which was now somewhat abandoned. The main had housed the regular inmates, the ones that weren't that violent and could be without constant supervision. The second building was for the staff, where they could sleep, eat, do laundry, what have you. The third was there. They kept the dangerous ones. There had always been rumors, of course, about child-eating monsters and murdering psychopaths still living in there. As far as I was concerned, this was now the storage facility that I was paid to patrol. And that was that. The first evening that I arrived, I was met by a colleague of mine. It was her and I who were supposed to patrol the premises, although not at the same time, so we decided to check it out together, so that if we ever needed to discuss the place, we both knew the rooms we had both seen. Let's call my colleague Linda. Linda and I passed through the rooms of the main building rather quickly. They had been stripped of anything creepy, and most of the rooms had clothes in. The second building was used for whatever extra stuff the retailer needed. Furniture, printers, computers, you name it. Pretty boring. The third building had the mannequins. Every room had at least one. It was as if whoever had decided to store the mannequins had a sick sense of humor. The mannequins had been positioned as if they were alive, sitting down on chairs, laying in bed. One even visited the bathroom. We also thought it was odd that the mannequins had legs that could bend, but figured that since neither of us were in the business of mannequins, we really couldn't argue. Linda left around 2100 hours, and I was left alone to patrol the facility. I made sure that my flashlight had enough battery, that my favorite podcast was downloaded, and I began to stroll throughout the building. I left our office, which was fancy word for place where we have a table and a chair and possibly a coffee machine, and started with the main building. Just close. Second building, boring printers. I laughed at my podcast. The third building was left. I wasn't really spooked, I have to tell you this. But mannequins in the building where they house the most dangerous of the insane patients? That shit's not right. I made that round quickly. I also made up names for the mannequins so that I could be more relaxed around them. Yes, it's silly, but I own it, so sue me. There was Henrik, the dude who enjoyed the toilet. There was Maria, the girl who sat down and read a very old magazine. We had Joachim, the sleeper. Don't forget about Ellen, the strong, who had been given a box to carry. I returned to the office and skimmed Reddit. Round 2 came around. Clothes, printers, third building. I asked Maria if there were any news. I told Ellen to drop the box, and Henrik to finish up. Returned to my office, more Reddit, coffee. Third round. Clothes, printers, third building. I had been more relaxed this time, almost enjoying the little game of pretend with the mannequins. However, this time, Ellen had dropped the box. I thought that I must have nudged her, or there could have been a draft, but there it was, upside down, in front of Ellen. I will admit that I stood frozen for a second, somewhat unnerved by this, but quickly shrugged and told Ellen that she should have done good. End of the night. I locked up and left. Night 2 came around. Clothes, printers, third building. Someone had thought that it would be very funny to move one of the mannequins to the window, facing the small road to the entrance. I was startled at first, but then mostly mildly pissed off. Ellen was carrying her box again. Maria had turned a page. Henrik was leaning against a wall, and Joachim was still sleeping. I found the renegade mannequin, that one that had been put at the window, and moved it back to the others. I named him Jor. Second round. Clothing, printers, third building. Jor was lying down on the ground. He must have fallen when I left. Maria had also dropped the paper. I made a mental note to tell maintenance that there probably was a draft. Returned back to the office, skimmed Reddit, coffee. Third round, clothing, printers, third building. Jor was at the window. Now, I must admit, I was scared. I had a job to do, though, and reasoned that there were some kids messing with me. So I went inside, up the stairs, and into the room where Jor was standing. When I got close, the door slammed shut, which made Jor fall over. I jumped in shock, took a quick moment to regain my composure, then ran to the door. I pulled it open and shouted that if someone was there, they should leave now, or they would be in real trouble. After not hearing a peep for a few minutes, I figured that it must have been the draft once again. I put Jor back where I put him last, nodded to the others, and went back to the office. It was then that I realized that Ellen's head had turned towards the slammed door. There are a few more nights to tell you about, but I haven't got the time to finish them now. I'm at a friend's place since I'm too afraid to sleep at home. I'll update you soon, though. Thanks for listening.